Manasi Pitkar, welcome back to the Preconstruction podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We could not come to Advancing Preconstruction and not have Manasi on. Manasi, you're doing a talk later on. It's a presentation of delivering robust standard operating procedures.
Yeah, long form for standardization.
Brilliant, yeah. Talk us through a little bit because, I mean, the main thing is consistency. That's what we're looking for. But one of the things is workflows, how critical they are. How do you decide what's a critical workflow and what's not a critical workflow?
So the talk I have this afternoon is about standardization. What is standardization? How do you go about standardizing? And what are the roadblocks, challenges, if you will, and what to standardize, right? I think the biggest part here is what to standardize, because we can all never agree on what's priority, right? So I think that the alignment piece is the biggest one. And I'm sorry, repeat the second part of your question.
Yeah, I think it was literally that. How do you decide which is critical or not? Because, I mean, this idea that everyone does pre-construction estimating the same way, it's just not true. Every company is completely different. So how did you do it and how did you come to the conclusion? Was it a case of looking at all the offices, all the people, and getting the similarities and standardizing those?
I think ensuring a consistent experience is big. For example, with my company, McCarthy, we have several different offices throughout the United States, right? But a lot of clients repeat from geography to geography. So ensuring consistent experience for the client is where I think we need to focus on. And then the other part of that is standardization ensures efficiency. It reduces waste. You don't have to start from scratch each time because you already have something put in place that people can just plug and play.
Yeah. And one of the big things that I liked about it as well was it saves time when training people. How effective has that been for you at McCarthy?
Very effective because you know the current marketplace and how busy we are and the constant influx of work and the chaos that is pre-construction. You know, you need things to ground you, and standard operating procedures are grounding. They ground you. The processes that define you are they provide the sanity in all of that chaos. So I think that having the standardization and alignment on the standardization, prioritization is critical to our success.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, once it's done once, it's there. It's there forever. There's probably a little bit of tweaking.
There forever, but it kind of evolves too. So you kind of need to identify subject matter experts to clean the process, right? And you need to identify support staff. Sometimes it becomes someone's full-time job to make sure that the standard operating procedures still are relevant and if they work. So that is also a roadblock, identifying that resource and making sure that the SME is up to speed on the current trends.
Yeah.
That's time consuming.
And getting a fresh piece of eyes on it as well. Yeah, exactly. And then what about pre-construction and estimating specifically? What is one of the best standardizations that you've done over the last 4 or 5 years?
I think the best would be standardizing the information that we need to extract from models and providing that to the design teams, because a lot of the work that we do is design build, and if we can provide the information to the design team that, hey, if you tagged certain families a certain way, I can extract information through Assemble or any other 3D software that you might be using for takeoffs, that might become a lot easier. So I think that would be one. And then alignment and building a template on takeoffs and how to do them, the nomenclature of what to call certain things. If we can all agree on that and do it the same way, I think that is the right step in the right direction.
And does that happen across, because obviously McCarthy are a huge contractor, does that happen across all of the offices? So if you're doing a healthcare project in South California and there's another one in Phoenix, do you guys share data that way?
We are starting to do that. There is now an initiative that is kind of unifying all the processes, if you will, in the Southern California region, which we call SOPAC, and then I'm sure there's going to be an initiative where it's going to be taken to the national design phase leadership, and then it's going to be implemented there. But we start small to see how much buy-in we get, how much traction we get, improvements that we can make before it's launched, nationally, so to speak.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always a feature benefit. Does the estimating and pre-con team, do they see the benefit of doing this long term?
Definitely. Initially, there is hesitation because, pre-con folks are special. They don't love changes. So there is hesitation, but once they see the benefit, explaining the why is important for anything that you do in business or in life. Explaining the why are we doing this. The minute people understand the why, it flips, right? So it's important to address the why behind any change.
Yeah, and that's an experience. And then let's talk about the roadblocks of standardization. Two in particular, obviously leadership, and then we've got software integration, and are probably the biggest two.
I would like to add prioritization, alignment and prioritization. Hey, what do we need to standardize? Yeah. I think that's big because in pre-con you do so many things in different places to put a product together, a deliverable together in the end. So agreeing on what is the most critical need for prioritization point of view, that I think is a bigger roadblock than building consensus and getting buy-in from leadership.
And you said it before as well, you've always got to have the client in mind when you're doing these things. Is there a part of you that has got the client in mind but also internal people and buy-in in mind? I mean, would it make sense to do something for a client that maybe the staff aren't happy with or leadership aren't happy with? Do you get that sort of friction?
There are certain clients, without naming names, that like to see estimates delivered to them in a certain way. So you kind of have to standardize not only for the project type, but also sometimes be client specific in, hey, what is it that the client is looking for? What do they understand? And what makes sense to them, right? So sometimes you got to tailor your standardization also towards a certain client, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense perfectly. Because as we discussed as well, I mean, the consistency is important, the workflows are important, but specifically within pre-construction and estimating, for you, what is the most important workflow when it comes to probably pre-construction rather than estimating?
By workflow, do you mean what part of the process?
Yeah.
I would say the takeoffs, actually I'll go back a step. Collecting the data from the request for proposal, I think is the bigger piece. Then it flows down into collecting the data from the documents itself, which is the takeoff, and then putting the estimate together. I think those are major areas of process that need standardization.
Yeah. And once you've got them down, everything else just kind of evolves.
Kind of flows.
And the pre-con managers can use their expertise, their operations experience, and go and deliver to the client.
Right. They wouldn't have to figure out where to start because they already know, based on your standard operating procedures or the job instructions, what the process is, right? It's defined. It won't differ based on, hey, who's leading the job? He or she would like it done this way. If we can all agree to do it a certain way, for the most part, there's going to be areas where there are minor differences, which are fine. But I think globally, on a broader scale, we need to agree and get alignment on the direction.
That is the dream.
That is
Nancy.
the dream.
Very good. And listen, before I let you go, how are you enjoying the conference?
It's been great. Busy, a lot of good sessions. But I am in the department management track, so I'll be spending the rest of my afternoon there.
Very good. Well, listen, thanks again for coming on.
Of course,
sharing
thanks for
your
having
insights.
me.
As always, folks, Manasi's details will be in the show notes below, so if you have any follow-up questions, do not hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Manasi.